Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. Really quick, go to karenrontowski.com or the links below. Join my Patreon, take my tarot class, book a reading, see my comedy schedule, and yes, I'm sending it. Or sign up for my email, please, because I've already got doubles on TikTok and Instagram again. So just in case I go all down somewhere, have me on you be on my email list. That's how it works. I'll go on yours if you want. So today, super excited. If you are a part of my Patreon, you know how much fun we had in October with the Angelarium deck. It is some of the most beautiful art. You all know I am obsessed with the connection between art and the paranormal. So my guest today, not only just an unbelievable artist, but also the nicest guy who was like, hey, do you have a Discord server? I don't even know. And you want to tape on that? And I was like, okay, boom, like that. He calls me, helps me set up a Discord server. So I have a Discord server now. So not only a great artist, but one of the nicest guys. Pete, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, I am going to jump right in because now you're making a tarot deck. I want to start with your art. Just a little background, how you got started. Were you always doing this from a kid? Was it just your thing? Did it come in from a past life? What happened there?
I think I drew the same amount as every other kid does, drawing like Ninja Turtles and stuff growing up. But when I was a teenager, I got really into anime. And one morning I woke up and I just had this big urge to go ahead and find all the art materials around the house, gathering up all the pencils and crayons and stuff, and wanted to start experimenting with making artwork from scratch. And, I never put it down. And I was 16 at the time.
Wow.
So kind of later than a lot of people I know who are professional artists say that they were always doing it. But I really think about my start was as a teenager.
Wow.
And
I love that.
Yeah, it's been a really important part of my life. I'm not somebody who was very good at socializing when I was younger. And so artwork was suddenly became this gateway for me to be able to relate to other people and, communicate and process, my own feelings and things like that. It's been an amazing tool for me in every aspect of my life since then. So, I don't know about past lives. I don't know anything about past lives, so can't speak to it. All the accomplishment I've had from art really stems from my obsession with it and my desire to do it all the time and engage with it deeply. So I don't really feel like I have a gift. I just know that I've got a little bit of a fetish for it. And I think that's where it all comes from.
I like that. I always try to steer people away from the word gift because I think it separates us from others. Even psychics or media, I think they've either just have more ability or they worked harder. That's how I like to put things. So it sounds like you're in the work hard category.
Well, the artists I know that are the most talented, most accomplished artists in the world, they love making art more than everybody else. The people I know who are the biggest luminaries in this field, I've gotten to see them work up close, and they love the process of making art more than anybody else I've ever met, even other professional working artists. And so I think I love art a lot. And then there's these people who I think of as being greater than me. They love art even more than I do. And so it really is an expression of the interest more so than anything else.
I'm going to get very paranormal on you here, but I also believe that artists are channeling. And I know even when I read tarot, there's a connection going on with source. And I always feel like that's the most comfortable space. So, I actually, right now, so like I said, I'm getting very paranormal on you, but I'm leaning towards your decks, which are just amazing. I feel like the the way we're getting information psychically and stuff is now being integrated into art. And I think everyone needs to be doing something creative. I was not any kind of an artist and just started painting a little bit, but I noticed how much it sort of like I got up this morning and I was all wound up, and just to start drawing something and don't worry if it's good or bad, just do it, like kind of made my morning better. So I get what
absolutely.
you're saying. Yeah.
There is a part of making art that connects us with a culture ourselves. And I think that's sort of universally true. And so I think that everyone would benefit from engaging creatively with some medium in their lives. So I think it's undervalued to a degree. I mean, a lot of people, they get into music or art or something, but I really think it's something everyone should have an outlet for.
Yes. And people, my Wi-Fi is a little choppy. It just shut up for a second, people. We don't have to go back. It just clicked out for a second and we got all that information. Yes. And it's not just, I also have this is my prediction, and I'm almost watching it come true, which is I think we're headed for a recession and money's going to go down, and artists are not going to be affected by it. I feel like art is becoming mandatory. And I was just talking to this comic that was sort of like, I'm kind of a graphic artist and I'm kind of a comic, and I don't know should I quit my job or all this stuff. And I did a layout for him and I said, I think you should start thinking about what is your art. Like that would make you feel better, your art. And I told him that I thought it was going to be important. And he said, you're right. Because when I was a kid in college, we just put up posters on the walls. Yet my kids are out looking for artwork and things that are going to decorate their walls. And I thought that's going to be true. Also, this is a weird offshoot, but everybody's getting very afraid of AI.
Sure.
And do you think, give me a little bit of your opinion on AI and or art, or just where it's going?
Well, I'm one of the most, my name is one of the most commonly used names in Midjourney, which is one of the most commonly used AI programs. So, as far as artists having their name and their work borrowed by AI systems, I'm on the forefront of that, being one of the ones who's like most often quoted and used. So like, I know some artists are, a very, very strong emotional reaction to this. Personally, I've had my work imitated a lot over the years. I've been an artist who's very visible in their own community for a long time. And so I've seen a lot of people borrow from me or imitate my style. My work has been used as reference in big commercial products like video games and movies. People I know who work in those industries say that my work comes up on like mood boards and style guides all the time. So when AI started using it, I felt like it was just an extension of that process. Mm-hmm. People were seeing my work. They wanted to take some inspiration from it and push forward to make their own thing. It's something I do in my own process as well. I gather up a lot of reference of other people's artwork from other fields as well, fashion, design, architecture. And I use that as part of the process of like developing my own style and my own work. So I don't really feel like AI as technology is fundamentally changing that relationship. The biggest thing I personally see is that it's like, my name is being typed into a computer program manually by, hundreds of thousands or millions of people as a result of AI being developed. And as somebody who's independent, I run my own business, I sell my artwork directly. Having my name being typed out millions of times feels good. Like it feels like it's a potential win for me in my goals, my professional goals. So, while I don't have, this is not the standard opinion. My opinion is, from my own perspective, I feel like it's a really positive thing and it has the potential to be an advantage for a lot of artists. I don't see that as being the prevailing opinion in the art world, but I've also seen, my corner of the art world become really aggressive towards things like Patreon when it first came out. It was unfamiliar. It was a paradigm shift, and as people spent time with it, their opinions changed. So I don't know like how that things are going to shift over time, whether it's going to continually get more aggressive towards AI or if artists are going to start adopting it and using it for themselves. And, we're going to see some sort of advancement in the way that artists like raise their profile by being often used by people who get into digital art through AI. It's unknown. Like we're really early at the beginning of this thing. We're kind of still in the first year of it being a public thing. And I don't feel qualified to really make a judgment on like where it's all going to end up yet, even though I'm, right in the middle of it and I'm experienced with these things. I still just don't know. So I'm allowing myself to just not know and be, trying to be comfortable with the not knowing of the whole thing.
That's such a good answer because that's how I feel like stand-up went with the internet. So when the internet came along, what is happening now is a lot of clubs are booking YouTube stars or people that aren't necessarily stand-ups but can fill that room. And the comics that are straight stand-ups are getting mad. And I feel like, first of all,
they're doing stand-up wrong. They're using their words on them. They're talking into the microphone incorrectly.
Yes. Well, you know what it is? It's really two different shows because stand-up is an art form and they're doing whatever they were doing on their platform, which is great. And I feel like, you know what, if they're getting people to the clubs, those people will come back again. But some comics really find it offensive. And I feel like the internet is the great equalizer. Like I was never an industry darling. And when I started out, there were only 3 shows and one of them was Letterman. And when I got on, it blew me up because it was like, it was really great, but now there's no gatekeepers, which I think helps out everyone. So, the more the merrier, the more that's out there, the better. I also think a lot of those YouTube stars will have they'll either move out of it or it won't be their thing for a while, or maybe whatever it is, let everybody make money and then use it. I know a lot of comics my age are like, I don't want to post clips. Well, just learn it. Have someone else do it. I'm listening to you say this. I'm just thinking like, I bet you, I've actually bought tickets to go see a YouTuber at a stand-up comedy at a club. Mm-hmm. And then I bet you that there are probably people in that room who bought tickets to go see a YouTuber perform that don't know who David Letterman is. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's a long time ago. Yeah. So it's a different generation. But now you don't have to do a Letterman. In fact, a Letterman or a Tonight Show or a Stephen Colbert is not really worth anything. At that time, they had the gatekeepers, and that was all you could do. And if you didn't do that, you were kind of out. Like they were really, if Hollywood didn't like you, if Hollywood didn't pick me, the Letterman show picked me, I was not in that where they were pushing me out there. So it was kind of a freak, 1 in a million, but it was great. But now, if you're a TikTok star, do it. And if you're not, get on it. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of with you. If you look at this the right way, it helps you.
You have to have an open mind. You have to be flexible to like understand the landscape of like what things are becoming. Cause like, mm-hmm. I'm very comfortable saying that I don't know what's going to happen next, but for certain, I can say that things are going to change.
Yeah.
Like we are in a moment of change. And so I know that there's going to be winners and losers. I know that there's going to be like the landscape of things is going to shift. But the way in which it's going to shift is just, it's not something that we can know yet. And so I'm trying to like stay informed and stay agile. I'm trying to like be positive, be in public spaces, learn, listen. And, like that feels like the hard thing. Like that feels like the harder choice to me. And so that's what I'm committed to.
Oh, that's good. Before the pandemic, I shot a hologram comedy show. So,
whoa.
Right? I'm not sure where they went, but they paid us a lot of money and it's somewhere. There's a hologram theater or something in LA or something, but then everything shut down. So I'm not sure what happened, but the idea at that point, this guy had a lot of money. He was like, we're going to hologram you into people's living rooms someday. And I was like, well, that'll
okay.
It'll save on travel. Right? That was exciting.
Yeah, you're going to have to stay in a lot fewer La Quinta inns if you can just hologram your way into people's homes.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm with you. And you know what? I have it's very funny because I'm way older than you, but I have a couple of friends, and I think the key to not staying old is just moving with it. Okay, now we're on the internet. Now we just move with what's happening, grow with it, love it. When you say people put your name into AI, is that like how does that go? What are they looking for? Are they looking for your art? Are they looking for them to make a picture of them like Peter Mohrbacher would? How does that go?
Well, it's interesting because like the AI is not that specific. Like the thing it can do, if you put just about any words into it, you'll get a really high polish image. It'll be very refined looking, but you don't get a lot of control. And like one of the few bits of control you get is you can ask for artist styles. And what's interesting is you can actually mix and match them. So you could ask for like two totally contradictory artist names, and the AI will find the creative midpoint between the two, which is something that no one would ever be able to do on their own. And so like my name is used less like specific instructions and more like a spice put into a dish. So it's like, you just put a little dash of Mohrbacher into the AI prompt, and it makes it a little bit more colorful, a little bit more fantasy, a little bit more dynamic. And so like the qualities of my work in an abstract sense will like appear in there, but that's like, it's not the only thing that happens. It doesn't look necessarily like one of my pieces in specific. It's actually really hard to get the AI to make something that looks very much like a painting I would make. But my name gets used anyway because it adds a certain something that people really like to see in the images they make. So like there is a spirit of my work which is mixed along with the other inspirations to create something that's wholly new, which I think is really cool. I like the idea of me being like the allspice of AI art, where everyone's got it in their kitchen cabinet and everyone's just like, they don't know what it's going to add to the dish. They know it's just going to taste better. And so they throw my name in. I would love that. Like if that's like the way it stays going forwards, I'd be very happy.
I just wrote down that when you do when you make a comedy CD someday, because everyone will, it should be called A Dash of Mohrbacher. That's the name of your comedy CD.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the allspice I would maybe think the allspice of fantasy art, I think is just weird enough to maybe have people ask questions about what's going on. Because I mean, they right now know like everyone I've met who like has heard of AI art but like hasn't really messed with it. There's so many questions about what it is. Like even if you were to hop on and play with it yourself, it's like it doesn't even reveal itself like to you. You punch in some words, you get some cool images out, and it still looks like magic. Even if you know the math behind it, it still works kind of magically.
Yeah,
it's a very, very strange thing.
I put in Karen Rontowski as a fae, and it came out very weird. It kind of like squished my face, and it was very interesting.
Did it get your likeness?
Not really, because the face was so squished. I think they matched me with like a real, you know how some of those fairies have tiny little heads? Not much, but tomorrow or later today, I'm going to put in Karen Rontowski by Pete Mohrbacher. Let's see how I would look at a dash of that. That sounds great. They did. Well, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to leave a cliffhanger. Hold on, folks. We'll be right back. Hang on.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Hotz, spelled HOTES.com.
So I am completely taken with, they did AI did what Jesus would have looked like, taking in a compilation of what men in his time from his location would look like. And I find it, I'm like kind of obsessed with it. There's just a couple of them, and I just love these pictures because he isn't a white guy. He has a very short beard because his sect of Judaism would have been wearing the beard's very trimmed to the face. And it just really looks really good. I just love it. I had another question here. Okay. I have so many things to ask you. Now I want to jump into this whole other category, and what are your stuff? There's one other guy on the internet, and he makes videos, and he really only does the type of archangels that are like an eyeball with the wheels around them. But you guys are doing like some really, when you do what is your paranormal background? I'm afraid you're going to say there isn't one, because there has to be with the way your artwork is.
No, it's the paranormal background is anime, unfortunately.
Okay. But still, I don't know that I believe that's two separate things.
Well, of course I intersect with this world all the time through my work. And I have to agree that, with what you were saying up at the top of the show, which is that there is a sort of paranormal aspect to artistic expression. And I think I interpret that in a much more, in a way that stems from, thinking about like the way the brain works and psychology. And I don't really think about it as outside like the realm of science, but it's like, I think that I think it's still talking about the same subject. Like, I think that the kinds of like artists are having a kind of like shamanistic spiritual experience, and like they carry a similar role in society as people who have been shamans and magicians. And I think that when people explore artwork, they are doing the same type of thing that happens when people are exploring the paranormal and magic and spiritual practices. So like, I do think there's a lot of connection there, but like the words that people use and like the perspective they have on it, lead them to, I don't know. I don't think they're leading to different conclusions. I think it's like almost just different paradigms to see the same circumstances through.
I agree.
So,
it's a different lane on the same highway, because I mean, and maybe you'll find this all poppycock, but I feel like you're channeling something when I look at like these the thought and what's put into some of these cards. Like I'm on your website right now. Everyone go, it's angelarium.net. Pull over and take a look, and you won't get where you're going because there's just so much here. And like,
I've been working on it for 10 years. There's a lot of content.
Yes, but it's, I could spend 5 minutes looking at one card. For example, let's start with Seraphim, which is just a type of angel. Is that in anime, or when you do this, do you see it in your head? Does it come out on paper? What's your process?
You're right. It does come out on paper. For me, I'm able to imagine stuff pretty well, but I'm not able to hold an image in my mind and kind of trace over it. What I'm doing is I'm accessing like a sort of nonverbal part of my mind, and I'm like finding things on the page. Like there's a large part about my creative process that's me feeling like I'm being led around. So I'm trying to remain open to what is coming to me as I'm working, and I'm seeking out answers from the work rather than trying to impose my will on it, which is an experience that is probably very familiar to people who are, steeped in the paranormal, but like trying to talk to somebody who's like a college student who has, no spiritual practice, no exploration of this sort of stuff, trying to tell them how to do this as a trade skill, teaching them art. It starts to get into the language starts to get really strange, because you start to have to like try to describe like, okay, we're just going to imagine that there is a spirit that is dictating to you, and you're there just to be be a servant to it. Like you're just allowing it to speak, and you're acting as somebody who's like there to assist it. And like even if you don't believe that that's literally happening, that is the experience that you're likely to have if you're going to be doing it. Like even the most skeptical artists I know understand that process because it's a lived experience for all of them. Like there are very few artists I've ever met that are able to fully dictate a piece of art. It's exploratory. There is a sense of discovery. There's a lack of control, and that willingness to hand over that control to an unknown force is like, I think, an essential quality of what it means to be an artist. And it's like, we don't live in a society where that is like a normal day-to-day thing for people to do. And so, there's a lot of ways that people try to systematize it and get away from that. But like, when I'm helping work with somebody like a struggling artist who's in college or just after college, like a lot of what I'm doing is trying to help communicate that idea to them because, it's something that they do naturally when they're younger and when they're getting into art and they're just doing it for the love of it. They're just being led around. And then the more they try to like turn it into a trade skill, and the more they try to like, be in control of it, the more they start to struggle. And like a return back to that process of like intuitive discovery and, allowing the mysterious forces to just sort of do their thing and giving them permission and giving yourself permission to follow along. I mean, it's a really powerful, really useful skill. So like, I feel like I have like a really strong relation. I probably have a really strong relation to people who have like, some sort of, paranormal aspect to their lives, even if I'm a bit of a skeptic myself.
Oh yeah. You're welcome. A lot of paranormal people are skeptics, and they're always good to have on the team because I'm not very skeptical. I mean, I'll debunk, but I've seen everything. I love what you're saying there because it's very funny because I make incense burners and then I started painting them and they kind of came out nice. And as soon as it turned into a job, or as soon as I said, everybody's getting one for Christmas, it wasn't fun. It just kind of lost its flow. So I started to control it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you have to have an ongoing commitment to allowing, to allowing the forces at play to do their thing and just accept where they're going and not be turning it into like a fully like controlled practice. It's like the practice is, allowing things to happen and they're going to happen. And like in that way, I find I really like some like old Chinese philosophy, like all the Wu Wei stuff, the, what do you call that? The Tao Te Ching and the Shangju, and or probably getting that wrong.
You're doing better than me.
They talk a lot about this idea of just sort of like the natural flow of things. You just like, you allow the things to happen, you accept the flow of things to happen as they are. And, it's fun in part because it's all little like contradictory and counterintuitive. And like, it's that contradictory, counterintuitive nature of it that I find to be like permanently interesting and permanently engaging. It's one of the things that brings me back to art. This idea that like my job is to sit down, and I'm sitting in front of my workstation right now, working on a piece while we're talking. Like I'm supposed to be here commanding these pixels around to make a piece of digital art. But like the only times when it's working really well is when I'm not participating. I'm here just as like a medium trying to transmit what the art wants. The more I can like feel like I hear it and I get it and I can tell what it's telling me, like the better the work is. So like, but then like, the temptation is to want to take a hold of that and be like, I know how to wield this now. I'm the one in control. And then as I like start to try to like impose too much of myself on it, it starts to get worse and I get humbled and I have to go back and I have to, allow the work to be bad for a bit and let the, processes start over again, get back to that beginner mindset and allow myself to like get led around.
You're like kind of describing perfect mindfulness, or the amount of mindfulness I know. I have people on my show that know much more. Did you ever hear Elizabeth Gilbert has a wonderful book called I recommend it almost every
I think I watched her TED Talk. I don't think I read the book. I think I watched the TED Talk.
Big Magic. She has some great inspiring stories in there, and one of them is about how the Greeks never called anyone a genius. They said the person was visited by genius, because then there was no pressure on the artist, and genius was open to anybody. Anybody could just have a flash of genius. So I feel like that's kind of you're just making the channel easier for genius. What you were saying too is, I feel like, because I know you're a young man, curiosity.
I'm almost 40. I don't know. I don't know how qualifies that as young. I'm not over the hill yet. I've just got a few more months.
No, you're doing great. I am 57, so you're a youngin' to me. But the comics.
Yeah, I'm not here on Discord.
Well, I'm grandma on Discord. That's what I should put my name as. Take down Paranormal Karen and go on as grandma. Go as hippie grandma. The comics. Exactly what you're describing. The comics that I know that have longevity and stay are always curious, even if it's not even about comedy, if it's about anything. That curiosity is something like, if I go on dates and I don't see anyone curious about, I don't care if you're curious about how to be the greatest janitor there ever was. I need to have that curiosity. Do you find, because of how your mind works, like I find, if I'm even just drawing or sketching or doing something, if there's a hair of a distraction, it's easier? Or do you need quiet, or is it? Okay. Which one do you like?
Well, okay. So there's two phases of it. First phase is drawing. Drawing for me requires more of a like focused mind. And so I find that there's a real correlation when I'm trying to make connections, when I'm trying to build the concept of a thing. I need to there's a thing happening in my mind that is like trying to synthesize multiple pieces together and draw those connections. And that requires me to have the verbal portion of my brain be open. So I have to put on some music, but I can't be listening to lyrics. So maybe like some, lo-fi beats to study to or whatever, like a lo-fi girl in the background. If I try to cheat and I put on a movie or a podcast or something, I draw way worse. I'm bad at drawing. But then once I have a drawing set on the board, I have, 20 hours worth of pushing pixels around. Once I've kind of know where the piece is going, I'm trying to like be a steward to the work and not push it around too much, let it be itself, find fun opportunities in it. That point, I love having distraction open. So I'm on Discord servers, public chats. I'm like putting on podcasts or movies, or like watching whole TV series while I'm working on the second screen. Having that like distractibility there to like leave half my mind somewhere else while I'm looking at the canvas is super useful. It keeps me on my seat, but it also keeps me from like, just being too involved. Like I'm not supposed to be there concentrating on it. I'm supposed to be there like, just attending to it as it does its own thing. So like the more I can be a little bit disconnected, the better I get at that.
It's so you're inspiring me now. I'm like, I got to get this feeling he's talking about, because I know what it's like when I write comedy. I know it's the exact same thing. Put on the instrumental music. It's kind of like when people can't meditate and I tell them to chant, because it keeps that monkey mind just busy enough so you can get the information that you want to get there. And this is really, I'm sure you have a million things to do. I think you just had another big success or another commission, right? Something like that.
I mean, I've always got stuff going on. I'm working right now on a tarot deck, as you said, and it's going to be a multi-year project. So I'm working on the Emperor card right now. trying to just wrap up the major arcana. That's 22 pieces. There's 6 more after this one. And then I'm going to redo a couple of the ones I started off early because I don't feel like they fit the vision. So, maybe I've got 8 more illustrations to do before I finish the major arcana. And then I still have all the suits, which I'm going to figure out a solution for getting those done faster because I think I'll probably do them a little different style. And so that's going to be multiple years. And I got Patreon to help support me during that time. And I've got my business. I'm independent. I don't have a job. I do this full time. And so it's Patreon. It's a web store. It's the way, like, I think a lot of TikTokers, comics, indie musicians work these days. You build a following online, you have your merch, you have your content, you do the thing. I'm doing the same thing with art. So I'm more like a TikToker than I am like a commercial artist in a way, which is interesting. I got on it really early. I started that journey 10 years ago before people started referring to everyone as content creators. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I've a publishing deal for Oracle deck that's coming out early next year, a sequel to the deck I have right now. I'm just wrapping up on the booklet for that. And, I've got the tarot deck in production. And then I'm also working on a few other projects, trying to develop stuff around my IP, because if I don't keep making new and interesting things, I'm going to go have to get a job. That's not acceptable.
Yes. And also where I was going with that, where I kind of threw you like half a question that you answered fabulously. I'm just starting out. So I'm taking those classes where learn to draw straight lines or that kind of stuff, which is great. But have you ever thought of teaching a class, or do you have an online class?
Oh, that's a good question. I like it for a content creator like me. Online education is the number one easiest way to make a living. Mm-hmm. And I've put it off for years because I was worried it was maybe too easy, or I wasn't really focused on it. So I did private mentoring. I've done like podcasting. I've done everything to do education besides make it part of my business. And this year I was committing to doing that. I have a collaborator, an old friend of mine who's a video producer, who's going to help me edit, produce, and shoot stuff. And we are working together on building an online course that's going to be really affordable for like a, subscription. People can pop in, join a community, and like have like courses they can take at will. And I'm really hoping that we're going to have like a version of that out by the end of the year, somehow amidst all my other projects. Right. It's probably the most important thing I could be doing right now, I think, is education, because like from like a, hey, maybe we're going into a recession. This is one of the best choices I could make as a business owner, but also it's, art serves people in a lot of ways, and art education is something I want to be a part of, serving people who want to get into art. I want to make that transition, that entry point, as easy as possible. And, I don't feel like a lot of our education's focused on that. They're thinking about it more like a trade skill. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's where the most of its value is. I see it as like an essential part of people's lives, even if they're never going to be a professional artist. And so I really want to serve that crowd as best as I can, as soon as possible. But it's, I found it's really true for me, and probably for other people too, that the most important work that I need to do at any given time is also the scariest. Mm-hmm. And becomes hardest to work on. I found that like in my work, whatever's freaking me out the most is probably the thing I need to be working on. And it's been a while since I've had to really dive into that feeling. I've been kind of comfortable for a bit. And I just keep having to remind myself this year, like, work on the school. It's freaking you out. It's making you uncomfortable. It's scary. The idea it's going to succeed is scary. The idea it's going to fail is scary. The stakes of it are scary, and so I'm really intent on it because I know this feeling really well, this feeling of importance. And it's like, it sucks because it's also the same feeling that's keeping me from getting progress done on it. So it's a lot easier to just, post to Instagram.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
I'll have something. If you want to take classes with me, you should be able to do it by the end of the year. So keep an eye out on my socials.
I will be, and of course you'll send out an email, and I don't even think
Yes.
you realize, like, I would say 70% of what you're saying is inspiring someone, and you're just like talking, and I'm like, he's right. Like, that's go into the fear, go into what makes you nervous, and take it from someone who took her 10 years of people telling me to put up a tarot class. After I did it, I was like, why didn't I do that sooner? It came up one day. I was like, you're doing it today. And then, of course, it took like 6-8 months to really put it together. But it was something like, it whisked me up. It was like, you're doing it now. So I can't wait for that class. That'll be wonderful. We're going to take a break, and then I want to hear about your spiritual practice. All right, everybody, we'll be right back.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Understandings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
All right. So you mentioned spiritual practice, and I've had it written. I always keep notes as I do my thing, and I've had it written, and you can't believe how many circles are around it. As for what would you say your spiritual practice is?
I am one of the least attentive meditators of all time. I've never been a subscriber to any religions, but I do really like meditation. I got introduced to Theravada Buddhism and thought, hey, these ideas are all really good, and it doesn't require you can do it from a what would you call that? A secular background. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, over my experience with art has definitely led me to the feeling that it's important for people to have some amount of spiritual practice in their life, whether that's like explicitly like a classical spiritual tradition or religion or something else. And so I have it on my mind all the time, like, hey, maybe I should be going to temple every week, or like I should at least be meditating every day. So even if I'm not doing it, I'm like aware of it. I think art is definitely a spiritual practice for me. I think that like I get this amazing sense of cleansing myself when I'm doing it good. When I'm doing a good job with art, I walk away feeling lighter. And I don't think I could go through life in a healthy way without having that periodically. So, but also I find that when I'm in an unhealthy space mentally, it's a lot harder for me to, engage with art and then get that same feeling. So like, I feel like I need it from it would be ideal to get it from a few different sources, right? Like, hey, if I'm having trouble engaging with art, I should probably at least engage with meditation. And so like, I keep thinking maybe I should organize it a little bit more. It's not my history. I wasn't raised in a household with any religion. But I keep thinking that the idea of kind of organizing it and like having it be a regular part of the life and having other people that do it alongside of me, might be something that's really valuable. No one in my family is interested in meditation or Buddhism. None of my friends are. So like, I don't have what would they call a sangha, a group. So like, yeah, I don't have a group or a social construct around me to help support it, which is something I feel like I might be missing. So like, I don't really have like a spiritual practice as much as I have a empty spot where a spiritual practice should be, that periodically gets filled up with other things. Maybe one of the, I think that one of these days it's like all going to kind of come together. I think that like when I'm almost 40, maybe in my 40s, I'll have a grand spiritual discovery, maybe my 50s. I feel like it's coming down the line eventually.
I feel
down
like
the road, it'll
I
happen.
feel like you're there. Like I think we always think it looks like a thing, and I think we're on the edge of mankind changing so much that the old construct of what it's supposed to look like is going to go away, and sort of this new construct, because you know how they always say my sister is like knitting all the time, and I feel like that's her meditation. And when I do tarot, I sit down and do the quiet and stuff like that. But sometimes I think there's so many ways to just be peaceful, or I like the phrase raise your frequency, that it's kind of a bigger thing now. But I don't know. I feel like you are so great at thinking outside the box. Maybe structure would hamper things for you. Have you ever had that happen?
No, I mean, I think I benefit from routine. But like there's like a lot in Buddhist literature about like, this idea of sort of spontaneous enlightenment, that like it just requires this one moment, that it's like a man on horseback going past a thin window, or like it's like a flash of light or a bubble, emerging and then disappearing in a stream. Like there's this like, it doesn't exist in like this grand span of time. Like it's not like it gradually unfurls. It's like it's always been there, and it just needs to exist for just a moment. And I think about that a lot. This idea that like they're enlightened past any moment. That like it's not something that I like with a piece of art I need to be working and building and practicing all the time. But that like I like this idea that like enlightenment is always available. If it could take a lot of practice to see it, but it's always been there, is the feeling that I kind of get. That like enlightened thoughts, enlightened ideas, they're probably happening to me, and I'm just not noticing them. And like I need to be aware, I need to be present, and in that presence I have the ability to see the things that have already always been happening in my mind. And like, I think about that when I'm like doing the dishes or shopping for groceries or whatever. And so that's the empty space where I feel like my spiritual practice should be, is like, these thoughts that I have, I feel very strongly about these thoughts, but I don't have them attached to any kind of like, organized practice, community, the things that like, I think really help support people's spiritual wellness. So, that's why I'm saying maybe sometime down the road, I think it's coming for me, a more organized practice with other people, because I think that this stuff is really important, and I think I could probably deepen it by engaging with other people in it.
I won't argue with that, but I think you're right on the being present. And I was always kind of taught being present, or that's the thing about tarot and psychic work, is the most important thing is you have to be able to blank out your mind, and you have to have a memory. Memory is a big part of it, because the very first thing that comes into your mind is always right. But we are so programmed to knock it out, or we shouldn't think that, or why did you judge that person that walked in? It's always the first thing, and you have to work on your memory to grab that piece of information. But when we are present, I feel like we sort of clean our aura. So when we sort of get a impermeable energy about us that others can't attach or energy vampire from. So I feel like when you're doing that, your art, that's what you're doing. You're literally building like this protective layer, and the information comes through. So I think being present is it. Two more big questions. I get, obviously you believe in a creator, maybe the ultimate creator who works through us. Would you say that, or would you say you believe in God, or that word doesn't quite fit for you?
No, I think about like in Angelarium, in the fiction of Angelarium, it reflects a lot about my beliefs. And instead of there being like a all powerful being, there's just a big tree. So like there's like all of these sort of human like figures in the world, but the ultimate thing is just this like is just a tree. And it's like it's not that it's like a tree that made everything. It's not a tree that is like it's just like it's there to represent like how unknowable the totality of the universe is. Like there's no way we're ever going to see or experience all the things. We get this little temporary sliver of experience. And we're just borrowing it, right? It's not even ours. And somewhere out there is like the infinite. It's the everything, and we're never going to ever touch it. It's permanently mysterious. And I'm comfortable with that. Like I don't really want to personify that aspect of like my whole thing, the whole project is about personifying aspects of our lives. But there's like this one aspect, the presence of the infinite, that is like the one thing I don't personify, and that's on purpose. It's to me, it's like it's inherently unpersonifiable. That's its nature. Is unknowability and like distance and space, and like there's a universe even beyond the perceived universe. Like even in in astronomy, like they talk about the perceived universe because there's a point where like it's just we haven't had enough time for light to travel from the beginning of the universe back to us from there, and it's just outside of perception forever, beyond the reach of all perception of scientific instruments and human observation. And maybe there's something beyond that, or maybe there's not. And if there was, it would potentially go on so far as to completely disrupt our understanding of what reality even is. And so like I feel like the only rational response to it is to accept it as not being known, as like a permanently undefined thing. And so like I think about whatever people are talking about when they're talking about God, I see it as a space that there is either something or not something, and it has qualities or it doesn't have qualities, and it's huge and it's tiny. It's an infinite amount of not knowing,
and that gives you more
big.
legal. Yeah.
It's about as big as it gets, and it's really uncomfortable. Chink is sooty.
That's so funny. The Wi-Fi went a little crazy just as you said big, and it made it sound even bigger. It went
it's big beyond big. There's no word to describe its bigness. Like, when I write in the books, I write infinite with a capital letter. It's like it's the word that I use instead of talking about a god. Is like there's this infinity, and we don't ever really wrap our heads around it. And like, I don't even attempt to do that. Even in a cosmology that I have total control over, I don't even define it. It's just, I show a picture of it, and it's just like a placeholder. It's an empty spot where a god's supposed to be. It's just a big tree surrounded by clouds. It's like, it really is. It's intended to be an interior look. It's like the tree is sort of representative of the brain. All the branching, all the branches coming off of it are like these little capillaries and like neurons. And so it's like, this is the interior experience of like the infinite, but it's not the exterior experience. That's out somewhere else. That's everything else outside of the tree is the infinite. And it's like, I really, really like this idea that we get this, no matter how big of a thing we make, it's always infinitely small in comparison to the real thing. Right.
Mm-hmm. That's much better than an old man with a white beard. I love that.
I think it makes for better art.
It does. It does. Now, if I bring up a particular card, for example, the Angel of War and the Angel of Anger, do you remember? I mean, you make so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, though, like, obviously, I walk a little on the darker side sometimes, but first of all, the way you use nothing in your cards, like things that are hats with no faces under them, or holes where there should be the body. That is fascinating to me. I don't know if that's an aspect you can describe, but did I tell you did that make sense how I just said that?
Yeah, no, like there is a lack. And, I was saying, it's not from spirituality, it's from anime. It's like, this is Ultraman. This is like, these kaiju fighting, like super beings that have like masks instead of faces. It's this like, when you dehumanize these figures, they become more cosmic, more powerful. But there is like an empowerment in dehumanizing a figure like this. So like if you were to give, like you want to depict an angel and you say, well, it's the most beautiful face ever. And you show like a supermodel, and it's like, feels a little flat. But like this, by dehumanizing the figure a little bit, by taking away the face or taking away parts of their body or making them strange in some way that dehumanizes them, I always felt like that made them embody something bigger than what a person, with all of their flaws and complexities, like to simplify them out, to make them a little bit more geometric, brought them a little closer to the divine. And so that's been a key part of the whole project. That's
a fabulous answer. That answer made my day, because also when you put on the face of a supermodel, now there's a feeling attached to it, which could be anything from, I'm not thin enough to, I think I know that person.
Or like, this looks like a person I know, and they're an asshole. Like we there's like people, regardless of what they look like, are still basically the same as us. Like we're just, we kind of know what it's like to be a person. It's messy being a person. But like when you're trying to embody like a whole concept, when you're trying to like, take this like larger feeling of like a piece, the human experience, like in a way simplifying it and like pulling away from it, ends up like exaggerating it in an interesting way.
Yes. And also the way you use who is floating, and there's one like who's in the air or where they are. Have you ever had I just have to ask this, have you ever had a paranormal experience? Like a kind of a spooky one, or seen something or anything like that?
No, I mean, not while sober.
All right.
I mean, no, I'm not. I feel like I'm kind of permanently grounded in a way. Like I'm a little on the autistic spectrum, and like I feel like a strong connection to just sort of like being sort of stuck in like the mundanity of the real world. Like even my dreams are not particularly interesting. A lot of my dreams are me like having to go to school, having to do taxes, like dealing with the ordinary day-to-day stuff. It's like I'm not a person who's like having a grand elevated experience all the time. And even in my own mind, I don't have these grand elevated experiences. Like I feel like I'm just experiencing like this sort of a fairly brain bridge life. And like, my interest is in trying to find what is beautiful and spiritual about that, rather than engaging with a perception of a world that goes dramatically beyond it. Mm-hmm. The whole idea behind Angelarium is really intended to be like a sort of internal exploration, rather than like looking for a world that's like bigger out there somewhere.
I am with you on, I think it's the little things that are going to kill me. Like I had to moving to New York and getting my car registered was like death. I couldn't face it. I had to set aside.
If there's hell, it's like, if there's hell, it's an indoor shopping mall, right? Like,
yes. And you have to return something that you don't have the receipt for.
Yeah. Okay. And we like travel there in our minds whenever we like go. Like I had problem with my AirPods. Mm-hmm. They were like making a weird crunching noise. So I took them to the Apple. I made a appointment at the Genius Bar, went into the mall, and the entire time I'm like suffering horribly. Oh, what if the guy tells me I'm out of luck, or they try to charge me a bunch of money, and I'm imagining myself throwing a fit and breaking down in the middle of the Apple store. And it's just like, I'm experiencing this very real existential suffering the whole time. And it's like, it's also nothing happened. Like it actually worked out just fine. We bring these things with us into the most mundane circumstances every single day. Right. And like, I feel like the challenge of a spiritual practice is to be like, can you get your car registered in New York without losing your mind?
No.
Like, it's like could the greatest meditator of all time do it? Maybe, that's what I feel like I aspire to, is like, I would like to be able to go through challenging social life situations without becoming overwhelmed by the interior world, the darker sides of in my own interior world, having them reach up and torture me when they're doing like paperwork, trying to get my taxes filed, whatever normal day-to-day thing. Like there's this cosmic struggle happening under the surface, and there is for everybody too.
I think some people are okay with it, but you're reading me and probably my crowd exactly. And I always think someone's going to yell at me, and I always think I'm wrong. And I've had to start many you should see me at the airport if a plane gets messed up. Oh my God. It's I have to start. I make a point to start every conversation with, I know this isn't your fault. So if I get upset, I'm not yelling at you. So much there. Okay. Last question, because I could keep you here all day. And this is why I have to take your art class and join your Patreon or whatnot. When I look at, because the angel of anger and the of war, they're a little bit similar. And the way you use the color of the white and red is fascinating. And one is in the air, the angel of war, and the angel of anger is very grounded, is on the earth or in motion. Is there a specific, like, it just came out that way, or there's a specific reason for it?
Well, I think Angel of Anger is one of my most accomplished works. And it was a piece it's the oldest thing on the website. It's over 10 years old at this point. It was, the goal of it was to not try to depict the action of anger, but the experience of it. And, that was a big revelation for me to achieve doing that. 'Cause there's, when people think about an emotion or when they think about an experience, they think about the externalities of it. How do they act? How do they look? What does it look like when somebody's doing that? What are the stories that we tell ourselves about that experience of being angry? But the interior experience of it is just different. And anger is something that is disempowering. It makes us feel sick and weak and horrible. And I wanted that experience to be on display, because that's the more powerful, more honest expression, is to look at what's happening on the inside of people rather than what they're expressing on the outside. And I don't feel like I always pull that off, but when I do, I'm proud. And that piece has people have talked to me about the ways in which it's been important to them, because it felt like they were actually seen for once, because these are the watchers side of the series, the fallen angels, they represent our shadowed qualities, and they're important to get to know, they're important to understand. And I want to depict these elevated qualities we have, and then these darker shadowed qualities as well. I'm trying to create a little bit of a map of my own interior world, and then it's great to get to show it to people and then have them tell me that they recognize it. How crazy is that I can draw a picture of what it feels like in my head on the inside, and somebody goes oh, I know what that is. I know where that is. Wow. That's pure magic. That is, to me, that makes the case for art as a sort of form of spirituality, because it's when else do we get proof that there's actually that we're not alone, right? It's so rare that we get to get a sense that other people's interiors are like our interiors, and that the things that we have experienced in private, we haven't been doing them alone the whole time. And so a really guarded emotion like anger, something that makes us feel incredibly isolated, to be able to depict that honestly, like that to me felt like, a really big accomplishment, which is why I say it's like, I think one of my most accomplished works, because like, I don't see that in a lot of other art. I don't see people speaking about this thing in that way, but I do have them tell me that they relate to the work. And so I know like concretely that is like the way people are experiencing the world.
Wow. This has to be one of my top 2 favorite podcasts, Pete. This is just really, and you're right up there with exorcists and voodoo priestess. I'll just say that. I don't know if anyone's ever put you in that category.
No.
It's interesting because, and I know when I do readings for people, I don't talk about past lives much, because rarely am I like, we can't really justify that, or we can't double check and see if this is true. But I think I'm going on 30 years fascinating of just the Rider-Waite deck, to every book, every class, every line, every color, everything she put into it. And it just, I get it. I don't know what I mean. You kind of remind me of her, because literally every single line she drew meant something or came from somewhere. And I'm still learning after 30 years of being obsessed. So this is just fantastic. All right. Where can people...
And then she had her work stolen and all the credit taken away.
I know. It's funny because when I did my tarot class, I found where her the copyright for it, which I'm sure she's not getting the money, ran out in 2020. And so before I put my class up, I asked the company, and they were like, you're the only person that asked if you could use the images. Like, everybody else was just like, we're just doing them. So I respect what you're doing so much. Tell us all how people can give you some money. They can buy the Angelarium deck. They can buy the prints, the Patreon. Tell us everything.
If you're interested in my work, the best place to go is angelarium.net. I've got a link to a store on there. There's a link to a Patreon on there. You're welcome to follow me on any of the socials. I'm on all the socials. I even got on Blue Sky, and that one's barely even out yet. It's like, I don't know. I survive off the support of my fans. So if you like what I'm talking about, you want to become a fan, you're welcome to come join. No pressure. It's
Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon, of course. Yeah. I mean, Patreon's great.
Patreon.com/Angelarium?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll find it. It'll be in the show notes, folks.
But yeah, angelarium.net. I try to tie everything over there so people I don't have to spout out a lot of different URLs.
Yes, I'll do that. And also, suggestion for the store: hot, tight T-shirts, little T-shirts for women that want your artwork spread upon them.
Yeah, like I'd never really know what to do with apparel, because my work it looks a little bit like more like a heavy metal band T-shirt than something that, the average Angelarium enjoyer would wear. So,
well, let me tell you, I think there'd be a lot of angels of anger at Coachella, and it would look great.
It was that piece was licensed as the cover for a recent album by a metal band called Blind Guardian. So they do sell T-shirts of that.
Oh,
so you can get a heavy metal T-shirt with Gadriel, the Angel of War, on it, but it does have the Blind Guardian logo instead of mine.
Oh no, we gotta have.
They licensed it. It was an official deal, so it's fine. But I get DMs all the time of people asking me like, "Dude, have you heard of this band? Do you know what they're doing?" And I'm like, yeah, they gave me a bunch of money. Of course.
At least they're watching out for you. This is what I say. I say printful, get the little T-shirts, and on the front will be your fabulous artwork. And then right over the chest, we'll all have it say, I'm with Pete. Pete.
I'll workshop that.
There. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was just great. Is there anything else we can do, or just send everybody to angelarium.net?
It's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for having me on. If people like my art, just, I don't know, share it with somebody else who you think would like it. That's the number one thing I think people can do.
There you go. Share it with everyone, folks. Go look. And thank you so much, Pete. I'm going to log off, but hang on one second. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Folks, I will see you next week. Have a good one. Patreon /Rontowski. Just go to rontowski.com or psychicstandup.com. See you soon. Thank you. Paranormal Karen.